Why did I become a grief coach? I realised one day that I was living some sort of a half-life. I had developed a chronic illness in my childhood following prescription medication for a playground accident destroying my immune system. And that accident led to ill health throughout my teens and much of my early 20s and early 30s. It is more controlled now, but I still have that. I had periods where I was reasonably well and others when I was in chronic pain, taking strong medication and unable to lead a normal life at all. This wasn't helped by the fact that I had struggled to make decisions all of my life and had spent years drifting and lacking direction, especially in my choice of work and relationship. It had been dawning on me for some time that the strict guidance from my parents, in which only their views, opinions and decisions were allowed, and that had left a profound legacy with me that was not allowing me to live my best life. My mother had been cruel in her speech towards my sister and I as children, telling me that her time being pregnant with me had been the worst experience of her life, and had she fallen pregnant again, she would have killed herself. She often complained that I was the worst sickly baby and she couldn't go through that again, etc. All through our teenage years, she would mention that if either of us fell pregnant, we would be thrown out of the house. She would say that she wasn't going to look after a child of ours, that she wasn't interested in grandchildren. Her obsession was essentially with my father and not with her children. Not surprisingly, whilst I imagined in the back of my mind that I would have children at some stage in my life, I was never able to make a definite decision as to when that might happen. Having children had such negative connotations to me. This, coupled with a first husband who decided only weeks after our wedding that he wouldn't have more children, and the chronic illness that at times left me unable to walk or use my hand and therefore unable to look after a child, led to me being child-free not by choice. I realised that time was running out in my mid-40s. However, my current husband was not receptive to having children later in life, and I spent the remainder of my 40s suffering from what I now identify as grief. Now, grief is a strange emotion. We can feel grief, which is essentially loss, as a result of numerous life events, but often we fail to identify that grief is what we're actually feeling. I gradually came to realise that I had grief from a childhood of benign neglect, from not living the life expected due to chronic illness and lack of a family. And then, of course, layered with this was the loss of grandparents, other close family members, and this leads to the grief that we identify and most likely expect will occur in our lives. None of us wants to join the grief club, but we expect that we will suffer grief from the loss of a loved one. We most likely have no expectation to experience grief from the loss of a marriage, from living the life unexpected, from the loss of a fulfilling career due to retirement or redundancy or illness, or even perhaps from the loss of a great friendship, a home, bankruptcy, etc. The list is absolutely endless. Once I realised I had layers of grief, I started to peel these back, doing research into being childless not by choice, reading the odd self-help book and connecting with others in a similar position. I came to understand that there are a myriad of reasons that people can end up childless, and that's childless not by choice. Unlikely, no person's journey is identical. Whether due to infertility, disability, chronic illness, not having met a partner, having a partner that didn't want children, or wasn't what we considered to be good parent material, childhood trauma, being part of the LGBTQI+ community, and the challenges that that might bring in having children, and for many other reasons. So to answer the question at the start of this video, one day I was out for a walk and listening to a podcast. A counsellor was being interviewed and I felt inspired by her story to train in an occupation where I could help people. I made inquiries and settled upon training as a coach, realising that supporting people on their journey was where I wanted to be. During my coaching training, I crossed paths with grief coaching and had a light bulb moment. The rest, as they say, is history. Coincidentally, at almost the exact moment I was listening to this podcast, my mum had a stroke, and this led to her death 11 days later. The grief coaching course was so beneficial to me in processing my grief from my complex relationship with her, and not having made it back to the UK before she died, and therefore I hadn't the opportunity to say goodbye. On the course, I learnt how to say goodbye, and this helped me to start to heal. During the course, it became obvious to me that working with CMBC clients would be my aim. If I could help one person on their CMBC grief journey, then I would feel fulfilled. Of course, it doesn't work that way. I help one person, and then I help another and another. My mission will never be complete. I will always feel such reward in supporting clients on their grief journey. If you feel that you would benefit from support on your grief journey, whatever the course of that grief might be, then please reach out to me. My next post will be about how we can speak to a friend, a relative, a colleague, or even a total stranger that is grieving, and how to avoid the common faux pas that we have all said heard to somebody when they're grieving. Thank you for listening.